morning, everybody. This morning what we're going to look at is Jesus, the bread of life, and we can read about that in the Gospel of John in chapter 6. Now there's two kind of very different scenes. The first scene is when Jesus is met at the lake in Capernaum, and he's met on the side of the lake by a bunch of people who are following him, and then he has a bit of a chat with them then. And then he speaks to people in the synagogue in Capernaum, and that's kind of the second part of it. So it's in John, the Gospel of John, which is, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and which is the fourth Gospel. And then it's chapter 6. And the first scene is John chapter 6, verse 25. And it runs all the way to about 42. And then from 43 onwards to 59, it's the second scene where Jesus is talking in the synagogue in Capernaum. So to get the first scene down, we're going to have Tamar read.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to start reading from John 6, verse 25. To 43. So please read along. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" Jesus answered, "I tell you the truth. You are looking for me, not because you saw miraculous signs, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which is the Son of Man, and he will give that to you. On him whom God the Father has placed his seal of approval." Then they asked him, "What must we do to the works of God requires?" Jesus answered, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." So they asked him, "What miraculous sign then will you give, that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our forefathers ate manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Jesus said to them, "I tell you the truth. It is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "from now on give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whomever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but for the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that he has given to me, but raise them up at the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise him up on that last day." At this, the Jews began to grumble about him because he said, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." They said, "Is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we have known? How can he now say, 'I came down from heaven'?"
Why not read it a second time now? And I have two questions really for yourselves just to ask as you read it. One very interesting question that happens in about the middle of that text. And someone asks Jesus, and they ask Jesus, "What must we do to do the works God requires?" What must we do to do the works God requires? It's a very interesting question. So as you read, try to answer that for yourself, think about it, and see if you can come up with some kind of conclusion from the text, and maybe delve a little bit deeper and meditate on that question for yourself and say, what must I do to do these works that God requires of me? What is the text telling me about it? What if I look in my own life, what can I do, or how can I answer that question for myself? Another very interesting thing is the whole concept of Jesus being sent down from heaven by the Father. Answer this. Why was Jesus sent down? Why was Jesus sent down by the Father? And what did he do? And what does the text tell us about the purpose of Jesus being sent down from heaven to earth? So for the second scene, for the second set of scriptures, we're going to watch a short video. The video is a little bit the Bible meets Broadway, which is fine in itself, but it's fun to watch, and it does go kind of verse by verse. Manna is mentioned here in these verses again, and I have a question for you just to ponder on as you watch and read the verses. What is the difference between manna sent down by God and Jesus, the bread of life? What are the main two differences that these verses talk about? The other thing that we hear is that Jesus is going to raise those who believe in him to life on the last day. What is that in reference to, the last day? What is Jesus talking about? That he's going to raise these people who believe in him up and raise them from the dead. What's all that about? So have a think about those things as we watch these verses.
Stop grumbling among yourselves! People cannot come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them to me. And I will raise them to life on the last day. The prophets wrote, everyone will be taught by God. Anyone who hears the Father and learns from him comes to me. This does not mean that anyone has seen the Father. He who is from God is the only one who has seen the Father. I am telling you the truth. He who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the desert, but they died. But the bread that comes down from heaven is of such a kind that whoever eats it will not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If you eat this bread, you will live forever. The bread that I will give you is my flesh, which I give so that the world may live.
This started an angry argument among them.
How can this man give us his flesh to eat? I am telling you the truth. If you do not eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you will not have life in yourselves. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood have eternal life, and I will raise them to life on the last day. For my flesh is the real food, my blood is the real drink. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood live in me, and I live in them. The living Father sent me, and because of him I live also. In the same way, whoever eats me will live because of me. This, then, is the bread that came down from heaven. It is not like the bread that your ancestors ate but then later died. Those who eat this bread will live forever.
Jesus
We
said,
hope you enjoyed this morning. Have a blessed Sunday and talk to you soon.
Yep, see you soon.